and welcome to another Doctor's Assistant 1 video. Today I'm doing a review of the Doctor Who episode Night Thoughts. A little bit of a disclaimer or thing to go over first, which is that sorry or apologies for the lighting, as I've got my sort of indoor bedroom even light on. Normally I just use natural light, but with it getting darker sooner, that really makes it difficult and all that. But yeah, what was I going to say? Firstly I'll go over the packaging and stuff. You've got like that creepy Happy Bunny thing, which is just creepy, which just so happens to have like one of the badges that Ace, as played by Sophie Aldridge's character, Ace, kind of has one of those badges. You've got the 7th Doctor in his sort of early sort of season 24, I want to say, sort of white jacket, and then like a bunch of bubbly water and a face, very creepy woods like thing. Old school sort of 1996 TV movie Doctor Who logo, Sylvester McCoy in Night Thoughts, Big Finish there in the corner. And then as for the spine, you've got the 7th Doctor, Doctor Who, Night Thoughts, Big Finish, and 79, meaning it's the 79th release in the monthly range. Then on the back you've got a picture of more of the art. Night Thoughts, a 4-part story written by Edward Young. The synopsis, the runtime, which is 115 minutes, and then the discs on the inside, and some of the stories that you might like if you're a fan of the 7th Doctor and whatnot. Now going over the actual story as a whole. Audio quality wise, personally, I think it's sort of just average. It's not the best Big Finish audio for audio quality, and it's just 5 out of 10 in terms of the audio quality. I think it's still their early days. This released back in 2006, so back when David Tennant was in his first series, if you can believe it. The company got the Doctor Who license back in 1999, so they had been doing quite a few Big Finish audios. Obviously, this is the one away from 80, and at the moment they're in the 250, number in terms of the monthly range. I think the core cast, Sylvester McCoy, Sophie Aldridge, and the guy who plays Hex, which his name is down there, they're all really decent. They all give pretty solid performances. It's been a while since I've listened to a 7th Doctor Big Finish audio, monthly range one anyway in particular as well, or monthly range release, that I can't genuinely remember if I've actually, as a character, if I've experienced him recently or not, and so it was a bit jarring hearing him and that. Sophie Aldridge as Ace is fantastic. She's really funny, or has quite a bit of funny moments and that, and just sort of pop culture references and that, which I like. The 7th Doctor is this sort of very Dickensian, almost Sherlock Holmes-esque sort of Doctor, at least in this particular story anyway, the way that he's very astute, very quick-witted, and very sort of observant, and very, as I say, quick-witted and that, I think, obviously comes to the conclusions, in contrast to Ace and Hex, he's always 5 or 10 steps ahead of them, which is always good. There was a very interesting line in part either 3 or 4, I can't remember, but to the tail end of this story, of one of the characters mentioning that Hex is kind of like a soldier, and that the Doctor trained him and the girl very well, and that, which was very interesting really, because that made me think, how Danny Pink back in the Capaldi era sort of saw Capaldi's Doctor as like a war general, and that the people that he takes under his wing are just his soldiers and are expendable, as it were. There's that creepy bunny, which is just, just that really is very creepy and sinister. I think Night Thoughts, I'm recording this like the week of Halloween and so leading up to Halloween, so it's a very good Halloween sort of story. It kind of reminds me of a mix between Black Orchid, Ghostlight, and sort of Under the Lake Before the Flood, because it's got quite a dark gothic horror sort of setting and feel in this sort of island and this manor house. And then there's also this chapel and church chapel type place, as well as the fact that there's this machine which can then like message these people 10 years before where they're at now, which is a really interesting sort of concept. In my head, I'm just thinking like sort of steampunky, sort of think Back to the Future 3, sort of, gramophones and that, but them trying to add sort of scientific stuff like particle accelerators into a gramophone or something, my mind goes to anyway. But yeah, so yeah, I think it's got quite a lot of, the cons would be that there's quite a few characters. I can't always keep track of all of them. I found this story quite sort of an easy enough listen to, and oddly enough, it was quite sort of, it did feel quite open and quite sort of heavy in terms of world building, which is odd because it's obviously, as I said before, a sort of dark gothic horror-y type story, so you'd think going into it that it'd be very claustrophobic and very narrow and very small scale, but in some ways having this sort of island setting adds this sort of, as I say, sort of almost like this sort of world, well, not world, but like sandbox at least, sort of play area for, the Doctor and friends, as well as all these other characters who have gone here for this sort of scientific research. There's even sort of baggage and backstory about the characters, as well as even the location we're set in. It's referenced that this island was used during like sort of the war off the coast of sort of Scotland, I think it is, as like a almost sort of testing site sort of thing. Or that's the idea that I got, or that's what I basically got from this story. I could be completely wrong, because again, there is quite a lot of substance in this one. So if you're, if you're a fan of, say, the classic series or have watched the new series and the classic series and are kind of leaning more towards the classic series, but also want newer stories from the classic series, then this would be definitely for you. And also don't like the new series so much because it's a lot lighter in terms of content and substance and sort of ideas, whereas this has like, 10 to 20 ideas almost, and that quite a lot of different ideas, and there is almost a Star Wars plot twist, which I would have thought they'd have gone for the obvious, but I am your father, have that as the cliffhanger almost, like how it is played almost in, or pretty much in Star Wars Empire Strikes Back, with Darth Vader or Luke and Darth Vader, whereas here it's not played as like the cliffhanger, the sort of oh my god like moment, or it kind of is, but the story kind of then just moves on and that, whereas as I'm trying to get at, I would have thought if I'd have written this, that that would have been like the cliffhanger, oh my god, and that the cliffhangers are pretty okay, like the one that stands out to me, spoiler alert I guess for the cliffhanger, but the one that kind of really sort of sticks out to me is the one where Ace gets like trapped in a bear trap. This story does feel very sort of the stakes are there, like it's quite odd really, in so much as you could have this as like a maybe mid-series finale or whatever, maybe not quite finale level, stakes, but definitely mid-series finale, like say this episode in some ways kind of reminds me also of Empty Child Doctor Dances, in so much as, the characters are being tested and pushed and that. And I think when you do that with any sort of story or fictional universe of or set of characters, push the limits of those characters, whether it be in Star Wars or in this case Doctor Who, or a video game with World of Warcraft or whatever. When you test those characters, fictional characters, I think the best stories come out of it. And that whether or not that's the case with this one, I don't know. But overall, though, I'd give this story a 7 out of 10. It's not the best story ever, in my opinion, honestly. It just didn't gel well with me. It kind of just felt like it kind of went by, really. Like, I honestly thought going into it, for whatever reason, the creepy bunny sort of character would actually be an actual character and be a lot more integral to the plot. And that I'm not annoyed. I'm just a bit more disappointed, I guess, with that outcome. Because honestly, I think the creepy bunny is used so effectively that they could have gone a step further and almost had it as like a Chucky doll. Although then you do go into that territory very much imitating something else that's, I guess, at this point a horror trope. Whereas this is restrained enough that it's still creepy, but it's not the vessel to tell the story, so maybe in retrospect that could have been is really the better choice, really. I don't know. You'd probably have to ask someone who's more clued up and well well knowledgeable about horror as a genre overall in film and TV and radio drama, as opposed to myself. But I'd give Night Thoughts with Sylvester McCoy's Seventh Doctor a 7 out of 10. Thanks for watching. Please do comment, rate and subscribe.